right, so you've done your sketches and you have a plan for what you're going to be doing. We've reviewed your sketches and I've kind of talked about what the positives are for each of your ideas and probably ranked them. So where do you start now? So the first thing that I would do, and one of the things that I'm going to be really clear about, is that anytime you're drawing, you could either draw from your reference, your sketches that you made that show the leaf shapes or the mushroom shapes or whatever you chose to draw, or you could use a photograph. Some people aren't immediately able to draw things without a reference photo, so that's where I start. But if you are fully able to render and create really exciting sketches that you can draw from, I would encourage you to start there. But for those of you who are not able to render as clearly as you would like, we're going to start by looking for some images. Now, you cannot draw from a drawing. If you're drawing from a drawing, you're basically not evaluating how to draw something. You are figuring out how to redraw someone's drawing. And that's not what, this course is about or this program is about. We want to start with photographs. So for me, I'm going to be drawing houseplants, and what I'm going to do is I've already actually pulled some reference images, but, if you're doing a holly leaf, what I would encourage you to do is Google holly leaf on a white background. And the reason why we want it on a white background is because then you can clearly see those. And so once I've identified a holly leaf, and by the way, feel free to scroll through these. You're seeing that you're seeing illustrations as well as photographs. We would want to grab the photograph because that's what our goal here is. And so maybe we want to do a pine cone. So let's do a pine cone on a white background. So look through, I'm going to just click up here and choose images. Look through what would make sense for you. So you'll do that for every shape that you want or you need for this. Hopefully you know what shape you're using. So if you're doing mushrooms, I would do mushrooms. And if you don't want to draw these on a white background, that's fine. But I find them much, much easier if they've been photographs. Just be very careful. Like, this is an illustration, but this is a photograph, and we can tell that based on this. We can also tell that this is an illustration because, it's softer. It doesn't have all of those, details that we might find in something that's natural, although I do love this photograph. All right, so once we have chosen that, we're going to take our composition, or we're going to take our plans into Illustrator, and probably by this point you have all experienced some of the Illustrator instructions, but I'm going to walk you through how to set up for this project. So we are doing things that might be printed, so that makes our choices very specific. So I'm going to do File, down to New Document, and up here, because we know we want to print it out, we're going to click Print, and none of these really work. This is a standard size for an 8.5 by 11. This is a ledger size, which is 11 by 17. You'll notice that this is also in points. So my first instinct was to make sure that we're in inches because we don't usually understand picas or pixels. So let's get it in inches. And then we know from reading the project brief that this is a 10-inch by 10-inch project. So I'm going to click that, and then nothing else is really important. We're CMYK. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and K stands for black. That's how printers define colors. So they have a cyan color, they have a magenta color, a yellow color, and a black color. And the printer mixes a variety of those colors to come up with the full spectrum. If we were doing web, it would be RGB, and you'll learn about that as you move forward into those courses. So I'm going to hit create, and my composition's just given me problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it real quick. We're going to get started here. Now remember, I did mention that I pulled images before I started this video, and they're right here. And I have a variety of them. You can see I have 5 different images that I might draw from. And I like to have all of those available, because then it's easier for me to kind of figure out what I'm going to do. All right, so there are a couple of ways that I can get these images on there. These are on and I'm on a Mac. All of my instructions are going to be on Mac. So if you're using a PC, you will have to go look up key commands for PCs. But I am going to do one of two things. I'm either going to pull, and this is typically how I get my compositions kind of together. Or I could come up here and go to File, down to Place, and then I can find those on my desktop. I called them leaves, so I'm going to drop this one in here, and then they're going to be all different sizes, because they're from the internet, and the internet is full of images with a variety of sizes. So for the rest of these, I am just going to pull them in like I would normally do, and then you can see again they're all different sizes. So what I want to do is I want to kind of decide where I want to start, and I think I want to start with, I believe it's called a monstera. It's quite a popular house plant. I don't actually have one. So Illustrator has layers. You know that from some of the other videos that you watch. So I want all of my layers that are for my photographs to stay in one place. So I'm going to come in here in my layers palette, and if yours is not up, you're going to go to window, down to layers, and it will pop up. I'm going to lock that so that it doesn't move around, and I'm going to give myself my first layer, and I'm going to call that leaf 1, since I'm not 100% certain. Now this is a little bit pixelated, but it's enough that I can get a sense of what I need to do. I think I'm going to do some white veining, and then you can see that there's some dark edges here. The way that I like to teach people how to draw is top of the hill, bottom of the hill. And I like to do that because it's very easy to understand. So this is going to be the bottom of the hill. Oop. And this is going to be the top of your hill. And I'm in the pen tool. And then this is going to be the bottom of the hill. Now, I'm going to actually get rid of that fill. And you can see that this is indented. So we're going to pretend that this is the top of the hill, even though it goes down and not up. So bottom of the hill, we can actually come all the way over here, because I believe we can do this curve in a few points. But actually, I'm gonna pull back and make that the top of the hill, that my bottom of the hill. We're gonna do bottom of the hill, top of the hill, bottom of the hill. We're gonna do top of the hill, bottom of the hill, top of the hill, or bottom of the hill, top of the hill, bottom of the hill, top of the hill, and we can go quite a bit. So this is going to be top of the hill, bottom of the hill, top of the hill, bottom of the hill, top of the hill, and then I'm going to come back and connect with that first point. You can see that I get a circle right next to it. I'm going to click and release. So now that I've got that, now I can go back in with my curve converter, which is under that same palette, and you guys should have watched those videos. You have about an hour of videos. So if I click on the pen tool, which is what I was using to draw with, and pull here, I'm going to get that pull tab. So I'm going to come in here with my my pen tool, and I'm going to ignore my bottom of the hill, and I'm going to pull the top of the hill. Now sometimes I can't get the full curve in one, so I'm going to release, and then I'm going to pull that a little bit wider. I'm going to ignore that, and I'm going to pull that. And the reason why we do this top of the hill, bottom of the hill, is because the fewer points you can get away with, the better. And you can see that I'm ignoring all of those bottom of the hills and just manipulating the top of the hills. Now there will be times when I come back in and manipulate. So this is a really great example. I need to manipulate that so that I can get the rest of that curve, and then I'll pull that. So it's not always in every other one. So I'm going to ignore that one, and I'm going to go for this top of the hill. And again, I want to make that a little bit more open. Now you can see it's a little far away from that edge. That's okay, because we don't actually have to be a perfect photorealistic example of this. I'm going to pull this point. I'm going to pull this point. And then we're actually going to pull these because this tends to be kind of a very soft edged plant. And then we're going to reverse that. So that's our shape. Now, one of the things we know is that there were a lot of cutouts. So I know that you explored the idea of the pathfinder in the videos that you went through earlier this week. So I'm going to go in and show you a little bit about the pathfinder, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hide this, and there's a little eyeball right here in my palette, and so I'm hiding it so that I can cut out these shapes. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to actually hide that underneath the thing. That's why it wasn't letting me. So I'm going to come in here and just pull these shapes. Now you'll notice that I didn't do top of the hill, bottom of the hill, and that's completely okay if you get really comfortable. So I'm going to do a top of the hill, bottom of the hill on this one and a couple more, and then I'm going to also show you that you don't necessarily need that. You can actually pull your curves at the same time. So I'm going to soften this guy up, and you can see that on this one I'm not actually doing every other one. So this is how I would draw if I wasn't kind of trying to think about like that top of the curve, bottom of the curve, and you can see that I can pull those curves as I'm drawing. So I'll do bottom of the hill, top of the hill, bottom of the hill, and usually I try to be symmetrical with something like this, and then I can probably get away with just pulling these top two, and then I'm actually gonna soften that. I'm gonna pull all of them. So now we'll do me just pulling my curves, and you can see that in my head I've already, like, you know, come to grips with the idea of top of the hill, bottom of the hill, and I don't necessarily have to make those I don't have to make that investment in time. Now, once we have those done, what we're going to do is we're going to actually make those white. And then I'm going to turn this on, and then we're going to go ahead and cut through this leaf. So I'm going to select this leaf, and I'm going to hold down Shift. It's going to allow me to grab that. And then I'm going to come over here to the Pathfinder. It's already up for me, but if it's not up for you, you'll go to Window, down to Pathfinder. And then you've probably gone through all of these tools in that first hour of kind of reviewing all of the tools. And so you'll see that this is minus front. So the thing that I have selected is going to cut through that black. So I'm going to go ahead and do minus front. Now you can see that other things disappeared. So I'm going to do Object, Arrange, Send to Back, and they should pop back up. And then I'm going to click that, and I'm going to hold down Shift. So one of the things that you could do is if you feel like you can take this on, so I'm going to do Arrange, Send to Back because we lost a shape. If you feel like you can take this on, then do play with the Pathfinder, but you can 100% do this project without the Pathfinder, and we're going to talk about that. I just like to start with the hard stuff first so that you know that everything from here on out is going to get easier. So I'm going to come over here, grab my last shape, and do my last cutout. So the last thing I want to do is I want to give myself a stem for this guy. So I'm going to click here. I want my stem to curve. And this is a fill shape, so I'm going to come over here. This is a fill in, and then this is your stroke. I'm going to flip that. And then I want it to be slightly bigger at the bottom and smaller at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to my stroke, and my stroke is right over here. And my stroke palette is fully expanded. So if you have a stroke palette that's only showing this, if I click over here and do show options, it's going to give me all of those options. And what I'm really looking forward down to is this one. And I want it to go from thin to thick, so I'm going to click that. And of course I drew it wrong, so let's we could do this. I can rotate that and move it into position. And again, you should be familiar with the rotate tool, but the reality is you don't, as long as you're clicked on something, you don't have to, you should have the ability to rotate it. Now you can see that this is too thin up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose 3 points so that I can get kind of a reasonable stem for that. So that guy's done. So that's one method of doing a composition, and so that's one leaf down. And we're not going to actually worry about coloring anything. And so just so that I have everything as one shape, because it's going to make it easier if I go to Object, down to Pathfinder, and outline that stroke. Number 1, I can choose at this point if I want to kind of make it a little bit thicker. And then I can also choose to soften this because it was a little bit hard. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking on that right there, and it should have given me the ability to soften it, but we're going to just use the curve converter. And once we've got that outlined, it's no longer a stroke, it's a shape. I'm going to click both those shapes and make them combined. So there I have one of my drawings done. I'm actually going to come back in, and I don't need this, so that was really the only image that I wanted off of that. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And then I'm going to go look at some of the other leaves that I have options for. I had 5. Oops, I really like this guy. So I'm going to actually rotate him so that he's vertical. Actually, this has got some nice leaves on it. I might do another one from here. So I'm going to come back and lock that. I'm going to come up here and add a second layer. And that is going to be leaf 2. And I'm just going to call him the tall leaf because he's pretty spectacular. Now this is a really easy leaf, and I'm going to show you a whole different method for doing this. Now you guys ran through in that video all of your options here, so it will come as no surprise that underneath here we have something called the blob tool. Now I would stay away from the paintbrush tool, and let's talk about why. So when you use a paintbrush tool, if I click on that, you can see all of that line work, which increases your file size. But if I use the blob tool underneath, by the way, I can set very different sizes for the blob tool. Right now I'm at 1 point. I'm going to make it 15 point. And you can see that it's really big. So actually, if I want, I could actually come in and fill in this center of my composition or my leaf with that. And then I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to actually bring it back down to the 1 point because I thought it was a really good size for this. And so, oops, you know what? It's not actually as good a size as I thought. I'm going to make this a 3 point. And again, I'm just accessing it by double clicking it, and then I can adjust the size. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to draw that. Now, when I click this, you'll see that all of that is one shape, right? So that's the nice thing about this. So the two tools that you're going to be learning to draw with are really that pen tool and this blob tool. All the other tools are not as helpful as they seem. And people who really know how to draw well in Illustrator are going to be using those two tools. And this is kind of going to give you kind of a more painterly impression. It requires a lot less kind of thinking through. I'm going to go ahead and fill this in, even though I probably could have chosen a bigger brush. So you can see that not all of those leaves are going to be as involved as they could have been. So you can see that that leaf took practically no time, right? Now I want to do a stem on it as well. And so I think that for this one, I'm going to use this same tool. So I'm going to do a 1 point tool. Oh, you know what? It looks like 2 point might have been better. It's a little bit too small for the stem that they're showing. So I'm going to go ahead and do 2 point. Is that 2? Nope. There we go. And then we can just come in, and I'm going to tweak it at the end because, again, this is my drawing and that's the way I want my stems. So I'm going to pull this guy aside as well. So now we have two leaves that we've drawn. I really like what's happening here. It's going to be a really easy one to draw with for the pen tool. So let's talk about that guy. By the way, if you hit Command 0, that's fit to window, and if you do Command spacebar, we can select and zoom in on that. I was trying to get it in a different way. So this time we're going to do a third layer, or actually this is our fourth layer, and we're going to call this leaf 3, and I'm going to call it heart shape. And I'm doing this to make it easy for myself, you know, and I'm going to use the pen tool. So this is bottom of the hill, top of the hill, 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 and then I'm going to close it. And then I'm just going to pull those curves. I'm going to ignore that point. I'm going to pull this curve. I'm going to pull this curve. I'm going to ignore that point. I'm going to pull this curve. And then if I go to the white arrow, I can click that, and I'm going to soften that a little bit so it's not so pointy. And because this has no stem, I'm going to choose to add a stem. So I'm going to use the same tool that I used to draw that last leaf. I'm going to double click it. I think 2 points seems good. And you can see that even though I used very different approaches to draw these, that I was able to use that same tool to make that leaf. So we're going to zoom out. We're at 3 leaves. I think we're going to do a few more. Let's think. I think I just want to do a real simple kind of expected leaf. Oh, I do like this ginkgo. Let's unlock this and rotate it. And let's do this ginkgo. He's going to be a little bit more of a challenge. I'm going to actually do something that will speed up time filling things in. I'm going to use both tools again to do this. So I'm going to call this leaf 4, and I'm going to call it ginkgo, because I think it looks like a ginkgo leaf. So to get this, I'm just going to go just really quickly and kind of fill in this top part. And again, I'm doing that because that means I don't have to use that that blob tool to do all of that. And then I can come into my blob tool, and I'm going to double click it, make it a little bit rounder. This one I'm going to kind of be pulled back. Oop, I want it to be a little bit bigger. Let's go 6. So I'm going to kind of go quick. And the reason why I'm going quick is because, you know, I feel like this leaf doesn't need to be perfectly exactly like it was. We just want to mimic that kind of ruffled edge, and I can do that really quickly. Now you can see that I didn't get everything filled in, so that's a really quick thing to do. I can go in and fill all of those in. Oops, I missed part. All right, so again, super easy. Now I'm going to actually use the pen tool to do this one. I'm going to come way down here, because remember with this one, the first point is down here, and that's the thick point. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to click here, and I'm going to do a bit of a curve and take it right. And this gets really thin really quickly, so I'm going to take it pretty far in, and then I'm going to come down here and choose that, and I'm also going to make it 3 point. And I think that actually looks good, but if I wanted to, I could reposition this so it's a little bit further, and I think I will. And I'm going to do the same thing just to make these all one shape. It'll make my life easier down the road. I'm going to do object, path, outline, stroke. I'm going to grab those 2 things, and I'm going to combine them so they're one leaf. So there's my 4 leaves. Oops, and that's really a big one in comparison, so we'll want to scale it, and we'll want to scale them when we start doing our composition over here. Let's see. I want just a simple kind of leaf, and I don't necessarily need a reference, so I'm going to turn all of those off, and I'm just going to go do kind of a triangle, but you know, actually maybe a kite is a better shape. So I'm going to let those go. I'm realizing that like both of these are evenly spaced on either side. That's going to make it easier when I kind of just pull this curve shape. And then I'm going to come in, oops, did it wrong way. Remember, thick point down here. I'm going to come all the way up through the center. I'm going to actually leave this pretty straight, and then I'm going to flip that so it's filled, come down here and click that. We've done this multiple times, so it makes sense in our heads. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do object path, outline stroke. I'm going to grab both of those things and I'm going to combine them. I'm going to rotate them so that everybody's going the same way. Now I can bring all of my leaves over here and kind of decide how I want to lay them out. So I think going a variety of different directions might work. Let's start with taking our first leaf, and I'm going to rotate it this way instead of having it, and I'm going to make it much bigger. So I'm going to put it there, and then maybe I'm going to copy it. And to copy it, if I hold down Option on the Mac, I'm not sure what Option will be on a PC, but if I hold down Option, you'll see I get double arrows. That means I can drag that, and then I'm holding down Shift to scale it. You have to hold down Shift to scale things proportionately. And then I don't actually want the stem involved here, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use my reflect tool and I'm going to flip it. I know this all seems really overwhelming, but it'll be a very quick transition. And then maybe one of these I decide to change the other direction and it's going to be slightly different. Now I'm going to bring this long kind of one in, and he's going to be much larger, and we're going to kind of fit him in to our composition. And then this is going to be a much smaller leaf. So I'm going to bring that guy in and kind of start positioning. So I'm gonna pause because I don't want to have you guys kind of thinking through, be involved in the whole process of me like placing everything. I want this video to have some economy, so I'm gonna pause and I'll come back once I have my things positioned in a way that I like. All right, so I'm getting close to, you know, a happy place with my pattern. So I wanted to come back and kind of start thinking about some of the things that I want to do. So I realized that I probably want to bring another just non-representational element, maybe a series of dots. But I also realized that like I don't always love the stems always involving themselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my eraser tool, and what I need to do is, for example, I want to delete part of this stem. I'm going to come to my eraser tool, and then I'm just going to shorten that. And then I'm going to shorten that right there. I'm going to shorten that one right there. And I think I'm fine with those guys. Now the next thing I need to do is I want to actually be able to see everything. So I'm actually going to come up here and kind of create another layer. And by see it, I mean I want to be able to see what my pattern looks like without all of these other things coming in. So I have my swatch palette up here. I chose a very specific swatch palette because it gives me the ability to have a variety of grays. And so if I come down here, I'm going to do open swatch palette, and I'm going to do the default print. And I know you can't see that because it's just a little bit off the screen. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. So if I click here, I can come down to swatches, and I can do the default palette, and I want to do print. And that's this same palette up here, which gives me all those grays. And I want to do that because, let me close this back up a little bit so we can have a bigger screen. So I can come up here and I can choose a gray that's pretty close to that background. And what I'm doing is I don't want to stroke, I'm just creating rectangles on all the sides. And that's going to crop anything that's bleeding off the edge, because for me, and it may be different for you, but like for me, like I can't see all of that activity and really get a sense of where I'm at and if I'm happy. So I'm happy with that. Now that I have it cropped in, now I want to go in and kind of start thinking about color. So let me pull up some ideas for color. So we're back to a web search. So this time, instead of looking for color palettes online, instead of looking for color palettes in existing color palettes that they have, I might come in and choose Moody, Mellow palette. And sometimes you're going to come up with paint swatches. I'm really enjoying what's happening here, but let's see what else we can find. So let's do palette for graphic design, so we get away from these color palettes that are specific. I'm enjoying this. It would be nice if we had 4 colors that were lighter so that they would look good on that dark background. Let's look for with pinks and purples, because we really want to be different. Oh, and this is going someplace. So I like this color palette quite a bit, and I can see 4 colors that I could put on a dark color that would work. So I'm going to grab that now. You can just drag it to your desktop, which is what I'm doing, or you could do a screenshot on a PC. I do not know what the what the screenshots would be, but on a Mac you would do Command Shift 4, and then I'm going to get these crosshairs and grab it. All right, so we're going to pause. So we're back in our Illustrator document. I can see that this is a little bit off, so I'm going to unlock that, and I'm going to use my arrow keys on my keyboard to bump that up because it was so close. I'm going to give myself a new layer because I want to bring that color palette on, and you can see that it's coming in big. Again, anytime you are scaling something, you should not scale it like this. You should hold down Shift so that it scales to that same proportion. All right, so now's when the fun starts. What we're going to do is we're going to come down here on the lower layer, and we're going to add a layer again right here. and that is going to be our darkest layer. And so for that layer, it's interesting. I drew all of these things in black, and I'm going to need them to be a light color. So I'm going to put them all in white. And then I'm going to come down here on this layer, and I'm going to choose a really dark navy to be my background color, and I may make that color go darker. Oops, I put it on the wrong layer. I'm going to be down here on layer late. I'm going to make that background. It is in your best interest to spend the time to label those. So I'm going to draw that background color, and it is very black. I'm going to go over here because I'm a little off right here and it's driving me nuts. Again, I'm going to use my arrow key to bump that over, and then we'll lock it. So at this point, I can go in and kind of define what colors are working. Unfortunately, my color picker seems to be doing weird things, so I'm going to go for something similar, but normally what you would be able to do is you would be able to pick leaves. So I'm going to click that leaf, and I'm going to hold down Shift, and all of those leaves are going to be this kind of darker blue. So I'm going to pick something that's close to that. And then it looks like based on this color, it needs a little bit more magenta. So I'm going to double click on that and just say, I want 55. And that's still not looking quite there. I'm going to actually give it a little black. I'm going to do 5. And that looks like it's very close. And then these bigger leaves, we're going to make them this dusky purple. And I'm gonna see if my color picker will pick that color up. It isn't. So we will improvise. I'll go for a purple, and then I'm just gonna use my color picker to make it a little less intense. And then we're going down the line, so I'm going to choose these ginkgos. I think this is one of those ginkgos, and this one's going to be the pink. So I'm going to choose this pink, and I'm going to go a lot more mellow. And then we have this blush color. We're running out of colors, actually. I guess I have 5 leaves. So let's see if I can get this blush color to work. Almost. Let's take away some of the yellow. Let's make it 40. And that's pretty close, but I think we need to add some magenta, so I'm going to make that 30. And then we're actually going to simplify this. We're going to pick up this color, and then we're going to make it just a little bit lighter. And then we're going to pick up these guys again. And I want to go with the purple. So that's the thing about picking a color palette, is you may choose to make your color palettes go different directions once you get something like this. Now, I think I mentioned that I was going to put some elements in afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and add dots. So I'm going to choose the blob tool to do that because I want them to not necessarily be perfect circles. I'm going to give them a little tint, so just a little bit of that purple. And then I'm just going to and I'm intentionally doing, I don't want to do circles, which is what I ended up doing. So I'm going to go back in and do that again. So I'm just making little squiggles. I'm intentionally doing odd numbers, so I'm going to do one little one here, and then maybe one little one here, and then I'll do 3 here, so that we're not being intentionally even, we're being actually intentionally, and you can go a little bit further. These are all real close, just as long as we're clear. And I want to show you a couple of things after we finish this. Is one of the reasons why we did this all on layers All right, we're going to quit there. I can mess with this for quite a long time, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to change everything, and this is the reason why we do everything on layers. All right, so one of the reasons why we did this on each layer is because now if I decide that I'm not happy with the color palette as is, I can completely change it up without much effort. So if I want to go to background, and I'm going to lock all of these layers, so I'm going to slide down until background is the only one that's unlocked, everything else is locked. Now I can hit Command A on your keyboard, and let's say that I want to make these fall colors, but not necessarily like expected. We're gonna go for a deep brown background color, and then for these, yeah, we're gonna lock that. So we're gonna go to our next leaf, and we're gonna hit Command A, and let's make all of our leaves an orange color. So we'll go for a really dark orange. I'm going to pick this lighter orange, and then I'm just going to go dark. And then I'm going to go to the next leaf. I'm going to do Command A, and I'm going to choose that same color. And then I'm going to make it again slightly darker. And then I'm going to go to my next leaf. I'm going to hit Command A, and I'm going to go with that color one more time, and I'm going to leave it that way. And then the last leaf, actually that's not the last leaf. Oh, you know what? I have I have 2 leaves on the same layer. We're going to choose this color, and then I'm going to just select these guys and make them a slightly different color. I'm gonna actually pop them back, and I'm gonna grab this color, but then take that color kind of a different direction. And then for my dots, I'm gonna select yellow. but instead of the bright yellow, oh, I like it. See, the funny thing is like I like this color palette that I didn't choose from, or didn't use, that, you know, I kind of just made up a little bit better. But my goal was to like let that blend in. So it's a really bright yellow, and so we're gonna bring in a new tool. It's the opacity tool. If you don't see that in this palette, I'm working on the Workspace Essentials Classic, so it should be up there, but if you don't see it up there, we're going to choose transparency. We've got all of those dots selected. Everything's hidden. So on transparency, we're just going to bring that down so they become a little bit less important and they kind of blend into that background. And so interestingly enough, I like this composition a little bit better, that I kind of freestyled instead of the one that like I pulled here. And so the reason why I wanted to do that at the end is because I wanted to show you like you can get all the way done, and if you build this in the right way, in less than 2 minutes I can completely change the color palette and make it more effective. So following along very clearly, using palettes, and you know, using the variety of tools. I would love to see you using the pen tool, and I call this the curve converter tool, but that's not what Adobe calls it. They call it the anchor point tool. These are plus and minuses. Using this tool and the blob tool, which will be underneath your paintbrush tool, are the tools that I want you to explore in this, along with color palettes, you know, to get this, you know, kind of going. And in project 2, we'll be increasing our Adobe understanding by that point to a pretty sophisticated level, and we'll be doing much more complex illustrations. And if you want, you can look ahead to that. All right, thank you. Bye.